Good evening, everybody. As our Gibbons Middle School Jazz Band makes their way to the stage, I want to welcome everybody to our annual Swing into Spring concert. I'm so happy tonight that we have an opportunity to feature our jazz ensembles that we have here in the Westborough Public Schools. You'll hear the Gibbons Jazz Band, the Repertoire Jazz Band, and the Festival Jazz Ensemble. And we're looking forward to swinging tonight and leaving here with maybe a little bit of pep in our step and a dance in our feet. I'm going to turn things over now to my brilliant colleague, Mr. Craig Robbins, and the Gibbons Middle School Jazz Band.
Well, good evening, everyone. Oh, my heavens. Good evening. Let me talk down here, I guess. Hi, good evening, and welcome to Westborough for those of us visiting, and hello to our families who are joining us. On behalf of all the musicians in the band, we're so glad to get to share with you tonight. Happy April. Okay, here it is. Down here it is. On behalf of all the musicians tonight, we're excited to share with you. My name is Craig Robbins. And it continues to be my pleasure to work down the street at Gibbons Middle School and sharing with these fine musicians 2 days a week in the morning. So thank you for the continued commitment that our families share in getting all of our musicians with us Tuesdays and Thursdays before school. The first tune you just heard featured Mr. Anish on alto saxophone and Mr. Meg on trumpet. A round of applause. And if you're unfamiliar with that tune, that's from the pen of Mr. Harold Darlin, who shared many beautiful film scores and movie music and various works across the 20th century, that being It's Only a Paper Moon. We're going to move now to a nice Latin work, Only Trust Your Heart. And this arrangement is by longtime middle school band director. His name is Mr. Terry White, resident of Maine. He's been around the greater New England area in particular, very well published, but does a great job writing for all levels of jazz bands in particular. So we look forward to sharing with you Benny Carter's Only Trust Your Heart, penned by Mr. Terry White. Thank you. Featured on that last one, on Only Trust Your Heart, that's Sahana on alto saxophone, and that's Olive on trumpet. I'd also like to, if we could, extend a round of applause for both of our percussionists that are trading. That's Sahith in the back on violin and Damien on the drum set. And our dueling keyboard/keyboard bass players, joining us from other sections in the 7th and 8th grade bands are one of our bass clarinetists, now sitting at the keyboard. We'll hold the applause to the end. Julian going between bass and keyboard right now, and one of our oboe players, that's Gigi, presently standing by our bass, our keyboard bass. third and final work that we're here to share with you this evening is one penned by a gentleman named Rick Hirsch, who attended UMass Amherst, and I was told that his nephew is a graduate of Westborough High School, which is awesome. So we have some Massachusetts right in front of us. This next work is entitled Swing Low, Sweet Chariot. Perhaps you know it. But it starts off in a beautiful ballad, so we're working on what it is to play lush and beautiful slow music, and then moves into a great shuffle. We're also going to feature a handful of soloists. We're going to hear from Julian on keyboard, we're going to hear from Prithvi on trumpet, from Wade on trombone, and from Akil on trumpet. So I'm really fortunate to have a whole lot of people willing to come forward and do some playing, do some blowing on the changes, as we'd call it, as we'd say. But what fun we're having. Thank you again for letting us share together every Tuesday and Thursday. Shout out to a few of our private instructors, Adam and Miss Joanne, who was with us, and we might have a few others along. But thank you to all of our friends and neighbors here joining us. And here is Swing Low, Sweet Chariot.
Thank you for your patience. Behind me I have our Westborough High School Repertoire Jazz Ensemble, and this group is a small ensemble but a rather large combo. We have our 7 winds, and then we also have a full rhythm section. So it's kind of nice to have that fullness of an ensemble. We have 3 tunes for you tonight. Our first one is a rock tune. It sort of reminds me a bit of the Doobie Brothers or an old Michael McDonald tune. Sometimes in my head I'm just, that whole thing. But this is a great tune by Eric Sherburne. It's called In the Pocket. Thank you. That again is In the Pocket. Our next tune that we have on the agenda is a jazz standard from the great history of the big band swing era. This is from Duke Ellington. This is Cottontail, and it's a great arrangement for our combo by Mark Taylor. You're gonna, well, first I should mention, on the previous tune, you heard a solo from Cy on the tenor saxophone. This time you're gonna hear several solos. Yeah. You're gonna hear several more solos, and we'll let you know what's going on at the end. But here comes Cottontail. Almost appropriate for the week. Huh? Thank you. On Cottontail, you heard a tenor saxophone solo from Sylvia, then an alto sax solo from Aiden, a piano solo from Rowena, and then closed out with an alto saxophone solo from your boy Raph. And before we do our last number for Rep Jazz, we're going to say thank you so much for your support with these guys, getting to all our early morning rehearsals. I'll save most of the thank yous for later because I got another group coming, but I do want to make sure that I am expressing gratitude on behalf of these young men and women who are sitting behind me, who get there every morning on Tuesdays and Thursdays bright and early and always have a good time rehearsing. Now, our last tune is a funky little blues chart in a 16-bar blues form, a little different than the customary 12 that you might be used to. But this is a fun tune to play by the pen of Bob Turner. He writes a lot of music for this kind of group, the high school large combo. And this one is called That's Too Bad. Before I begin, I am going to mention our soloists because otherwise I won't get a chance to do it before we're done. We're going to hear a little bit of an alto sax battle on this one. You're going to hear Aiden, and then you're going to hear Raph, and then later on you're going to hear Aiden, and then Raph, then Aiden, then Raph, then Aiden, and Raph. And so it's going to be a lot of fun checking out That's Too Bad. Here we go, friends. 1, 2, 3. Thank you very much. That's Repertoire Jazz Ensemble. If you'll bear with us a moment, we're going to get one more transition and get the Festival Jazz Ensemble on up here. Thank you so much. Good evening once again. I turned myself off. That's fine, I got a big voice. So, this is Festival Jazz Ensemble, and our set tonight, we have 4 tunes for you. The first one is from the Stan Kenton Orchestra, and it's a tune by one of their great arrangers and writers, Hank Levy. And he wrote a ton of stuff, and a lot of times he tried to like unique time signatures. And this tune that we're about to play is in 6/8, which you do see in jazz from time to time, but not very frequently, not compared to 4/4, 3/4, 2/4, those kind of signatures. What's neat about this one is because it's in 6/8, we have this feel of like 3 parts of each beat, da-da-da-da-da. And that helps to sometimes mess with the idea that like it's also swinging at times. Sometimes it's strictly in 6/8, sometimes it's swinging. Sometimes that 6/8 gets accented so it feels like it's in 3/4. So there's all sorts of crazy time things happening in this tune. It starts with bass, it ends with bass, and there's a whole lot of fun in between. This is Pegasus. Here we are.
Our next tune, yes, I'm a band too. Our next tune comes from the classic American songbook. This is an arrangement of the old tune, The Way You Look Tonight. There's no solos in this one. This is just sort of a big band feature, but it swings really nicely, and it's from Sammy Nestico. He was best known perhaps for being an arranger for the Basie Band and did a lot of great charts with them. But this is one he didn't do for them. It's just one he did because he was writing good stuff for high school bands. And this is The Way You Look Tonight. Part of my ADHD comes with a working memory issue. And so, that was our rendition of The Way You Look Tonight. Next up, we've got another great Kenny Dorham tune, and also by Mark Taylor, who did the Cottontail from Rep Jazz. This is Blue Bossa, a great Latin tune, a lot of fun to play. We're going to hear several solos in here. I'll let you know at the end. But maybe keep track on your own and you can check to see if you can name them all. Here we go, Blue Bossa. off into the night. I do want to once again reiterate my thanks to you on behalf of these students here. All the early mornings, the late evening lessons, driving them everywhere, getting them everywhere since 5th grade, all the way to now. For some of them, it's been a long ride, and it's been a joy to be their teacher. We couldn't do this without great administrative support. It starts with our Fine Arts Director, Chris Martin, and extends to our building principals, Brian Callahan and Jack Foley. And here at the high school, assistant principals, Kate Mercadante and Jess Barrett. And at Gibbons, we have Mo. And they're all wonderful people and great supporters that love our program, love these kids, and we couldn't do these things without them. We also couldn't do it without the support of our superintendent, Ms. Borchers, and really the rest of the Westborough community for really supporting, and not only supporting, but insisting on keeping fine arts an important part of the curriculum. Thank you so much for that. For those of you who are parents of middle schoolers, we do hope they will continue on. I know there's a lot of options. There's so many great things to do, and we hate if this is their last stop in their band careers. And I always want to make sure that I caution you, there is plenty of time and room in the curriculum and in the schedule, sophomore, junior, senior year. I have seniors who don't know what to do with their schedule. They have things like they're doing double band or triple science and quadruple math, all sorts of crazy things. It is possible to get every bit of the educational experience you want here in Westborough. And I'm so grateful to be in a place that values academics. My own kids are students here, but I also love that we support our athletes, support our artists, our musicians equally, and thank you for that. This last tune is a tune by Bill Byers, and this was written for the Basie Band a long time ago. It's a great little shuffle. It's going to feature solos, and I gotta go and look because my notes are leaving me. I wrote it all down. Once again, you're gonna hear a trumpet solo from Anya, and then your boy Blackjack's gonna pick up another tenor solo. Hearing that nickname this past week in New York, that's Raphael. But this is Bill Byers' tune, Sassy. Thank you. Oh, it also does have a wonderful flute moment. The trumpet and flute have a great duet at the beginning. It's a lot of fun. I should tell you that. You're right. Get those things adjusted. Let's get you set. One, two, one, two.